Hi, and welcome to another Döhle Yachts Coffee Break. My name is Sean Langford, Technical Yacht Manager, and I'm joined today with Florian Brand from our Hamburg office. So we're going to continue the insurance coffee break topic, and today we're going to be covering when to use the insurance, keeping it in mind with regards to yard periods, new build, etc. So obviously, being on the technical side, this is when I understand, the insurance side of refits in a yard, and when I would be contacting our broker. Mm-hmm. So what would we look for in an upcoming yard for insurance, or what would insurance be looking for?
So, in general, there are a few points to consider when approaching a yard period. From an insurer's, from an owner's or manager's perspective, it is crucial to prepare every single yard stay, also in view of the insurances provided, as there might be no cover when one does not pay attention to the details.
Which could be a disaster.
Absolutely. So the first thing we as a broker always recommend towards the management company or the owner or the captain is look at your hull and machinery policy and check the conditions which refer to yard stay. Usually this is referred to as the so-called shipyard clause. Okay. And every solid hull and machinery cover note or policy should have such a clause incorporated. Yeah. This clause determines the procedures and warranties an insured must comply with when approaching a yard period or yard stay. For example, one important aspect is the waiver of subrogation, which is usually demanded by the yard and by which the insurer waivers to take recourse against the shipyard above the stated limits in this waiver of subrogation wording. Yeah. This is usually provided by the yard prior entering the yard because they want basically to protect themselves.
Of course, yeah.
So this waiver should not be signed without consent of the insurance broker and or manager. And this is a topic we always try to express towards the captains we are speaking to, because most of the times the captain is the first point of contact when approaching the yard stay. And we have seen yards, they were sending out this waiver just right or just before entering the yard, and the captain was just signing it because he wanted to go in. And of course, it can cause quite some issues. Prior entering a yard, it is very important to study the wording of the waiver of subrogation and to detect the insurance limits for liability of the yard and their contractors. Yeah. These limits must comply with the limits stated in the hull and machinery insurance policy. Additionally, there should always be the list of planned works shared with the insurer and with the broker, and confirm that there will be any hot works carried out. Yeah. So if there will be hot works, it is important to declare what is being done and how, because the hot work regulation of the yard must be compliant. Yeah. And also, for example, fire watch should be in place.
Yeah. With regards to hot works, how much time would the broker need for that, or the underwriter? Say if we had hot works that were going to be done tomorrow, would that be enough time, or do you need...
Yeah, it should be enough time. Obviously, every underwriter needs some time in order to assess a risk and go through the details. It's not that an insurer or an underwriter is working against a client. It's not. they are in the game in order to detect any risk or whatsoever, and to protect the vessel. So they one of the biggest aims is to avoid a claim.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Which is the nature of the business. But yeah, it would definitely be enough and sufficient time.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be done in a few hours, but I would always recommend to plan sufficient time for that, because in my opinion, hot works is regularly not something which is popping up from one day to the other. It can, of course, but usually you're planning these works in advance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if a vessel is, for example, also to be taken out of the water for a longer period, the involved party should focus on the lifting arrangements, determine a watch plan with qualified personnel, and also confirm the firefighting plan of the yacht, which is usually something the insurers are also asking for.
And are they going to be asking the yard directly, or is this going to be the role of the crew or role of yacht management?
Altogether.
Yeah.
The insurer always first speaks to the broker, and then it's the broker's role to inform all the parties involved, to bring up awareness, and then collect information, share it with the insurer, and once everything is confirmed, it's all fine.
Yeah.
Additionally, it is important to check if there will be any subcontractors in place which have not been contracted by the yacht, but for example from the owner or captain or management company. We always recommend obtain a copy of their liability insurance certificate, and check the limits, because these need to comply with the limits stated in the shipyard clause of the hull and machinery insurance policy.
Right.
Lastly, always give updates to the insurers about any potential delays and also for any additional works to be carried out. There's nothing to lose, just disclose it, advise the insurer, and then everything should be fine.
Yes. Fingers crossed. Now, looking at it from obviously yacht management side, when going into a yard, it's belts and braces, and we want to make sure that everything is completely tied up. So with regards to a contract going into a shipyard, does the insurance get involved in that side of it?
Sometimes. It always depends on the work which is being planned. If you have a full refit or a major refit which lasts 1-2 years, it's definitely something the insurer should be involved in. Whereas if you just have a warranty claim which is minor, it's sufficient to advise the underwriter on the insurance side, but usually that's it.
Yeah. So new build, a little bit different to yard periods and refits. You don't really get involved until right at the end of delivery, is that right?
Yes. However, if the owner has a yacht in the final build phase, it's common that crew is being employed for the final month, maybe even a year. And once the owner takes on crew on employment contracts, for example, he is liable towards his crew. And in order to protect his liability, we always recommend to take out pre-delivery P&I insurance, which is basically the same as the usual trading or operational P&I insurance, but it focuses on this final build phase of the vessel.
Okay. And so hull and machinery is obviously going to be with the yard up until delivery.
Yes, so the vessel itself is covered under the yard's insurance policy until the official handover to the owner.
Okay.
So once the contract is signed, the vessel is being handed over to the client. This is usually the inception date of a new build under the insurance.
Okay.
Or under the hull and machinery insurance.
So when should somebody be contacting an insurance broker? How long before delivery?
There's not a rule. In the best case, a couple of weeks, maybe even months, because there are some things to discuss, to even discover. And if it's a vessel being one of a kind, with nothing to compare, it can be that the underwriters are asking quite a lot of questions because they have not seen the engine before on a sailing boat, the rigging or the mast, etc., etc. There's a lot to consider, and sometimes you need to send out a surveyor, reports need to be issued, reports need to be studied, and it takes time. So always approach the broker well in advance.
Okay. And what about buying a yacht that's already in operation? Would you continue to use the insurance that's already in place, or would you have to start all over again, get insurance surveyors out, etc.?
That also depends, in my opinion. I mean, you can always have a look at the expiring policy conditions on the premium and the deductible, which insurer is behind that policy, and you can approach your broker and ask whether that insurer is a reputational one. If it's the case, and if the broker says, for example, the premium conditions, deductibles are on a common market level, then I don't see any reason to not extend or take over with that insurance provider. On the other hand, of course, it's always a good point to do some sort of a benchmarking to see if there are other options around, and to check the market. And obviously also in this game, money plays a role, and sometimes you can save some bucks on the premium, or get a lower deductible, or get better conditions, so the scope of cover, so it all depends.
All right, well, thank you very much. I think what I've got from this is that look for a good insurance broker, and you should be good. All right, well, thanks for joining us today on today's coffee break, and we'll see you at the next one. Cheers, bye.
Bye.